Yesterday there was sun and there was rain, beauty in the mundane. And as the light startled our eyes, we let go of disguise.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Hannah Olson and I love sharing about all things motherhood, homemaking, and homeschooling, which is the topic of today's video. I live in Minnesota with my husband and our 3 children, Sophie, Soren, and Svea. And Sophie is 6, she just turned 6. Soren is almost 4, and Svea is 7 months old. We homeschool. I'm an elementary teacher turned stay-at-home homeschooling mom, and I love all things books and education and just lifelong learning with my kids. For today's video, I wanted to sit down and share with you our science and nature related books that we keep in our book bin or our book box downstairs in our living room amongst all of our other homeschooling stuff, all of our homeschooling books and other supplies, our morning basket, which I have a whole video about, all of those kinds of things. I love having these science and nature related books in the book bin because then they are forward facing, you know, you can see the covers and it makes it a lot more engaging and fun for my kids, and then they are more inclined to just reach for those books for fun. So I love having a book bin. We do have a whole homeschool shelf as well, and if you want to see some of that, I have older videos from last school year when I set everything up, and I would say the layout is very, very similar to how it was in those videos, so I will link those videos down below for you. Now, just for a little background info, we have a kindergartner, a year 2 preschooler, so I like to do preschool, pre-K, and then kindergarten. At least that's what I've done for my first 2 children. And so Soren is in his 2nd year of preschool right now, and then we have a baby crawling around. So we are focused mainly on, of course, the lower elementary or the preschool, pre-K, and kindergarten age content. Even though these books are for my preschooler and my kindergartner, I would still recommend them for elementary ages and perhaps even older than that, because these are really engaging, wonderful books that teach about science and nature, and I'm excited to share them with you. My hope for this video is to give you some extra picture books, extra resources, and extra ideas when it comes to teaching science and nature related topics in your homeschool. All right, let's jump in. I have a whole stack of books, our science and nature related books, here next to me, and I'm just going to pull one at a time and tell you a little bit about it and move on. So hopefully these will give you some good ideas. This first one is called Food and Farming. If you've heard of DK books, this says Dorling Kindersley, and DK books, Bjorn, my husband, and I are such fans of these books because they are so interesting and engaging, and they have real pictures for kids, really great nonfiction books. This one we found used at Half Price Books, I think, and it's called Food and Farming, which is perfect because my husband is a farmer, among other things. But we love this, especially Soren, our son, loves learning about farming, and so this was fun for him to read. And of course it's related to nature because we've got all sorts of animals, but I would also probably consider this to be a social studies book. I want to mention this one quickly. This I actually added this year to our fall collection, and I have a very recent video up on my channel here about our fall books collection, and I encourage you to check that out. This one is called Why Do Leaves Change Colors? Because my kids were asking about why leaves change colors, and I knew it had to do with chlorophyll, but I wanted a little better answer for them. And I have just loved these Betsy Maestro books. She really gets into good detail about, well, not only chlorophyll, but all sorts of aspects of why trees need leaves and stuff like that. So if you have seen my fall book collection video, add this one to your list as well. This next one is called Sounds of Nature, The World of Birds, and we have a couple books like this one. It makes sound, so you can kind of press through a couple pages worth of paper here to this kind of button underneath. It's a little hard to press, but I would still say it's worth it because you get to learn about all sorts of birds. We also have one, I think it's like forest sounds. I didn't grab that one for tonight's purposes, but I can link that one below as well. But yeah, it's a big book. We keep this horizontally in our big bookshelf of homeschool books, and I love having books that make sounds. And that sounds funny because I usually don't like toys with a lot of sounds, but I like the books with sounds because it just gives your kids such a good feel for, of course, like what a bird says or what noise an animal makes. So I like this one a lot. Speaking of birds, this one is called The Boy Who Drew Birds, and it's the story of John James Audubon. And if you've heard of the Audubon Society and, you know, all that bird related stuff, it's really fun to read about his story and his life and why he liked birds so much. So I definitely have this in our science book bin. We've got Wild and Tame Animals, and this is by Dolive Ipcar. I love her books. They are beautifully illustrated. I consider this to be one of our science and nature books because she really lays out kind of the history of different animals and just a lot of opposites and contrasts between domesticated animals and more wild animals. This kind of feels like cheating to show you a pre-made, you know, book box of science-related books, but I just had to show you because these are Usborne beginners. I believe Usborne as a company is now called something like Paper Pie, so you might need to look that up, but I'll try to link this below. This is just a boxed set. We are huge fans of Usborne books. I feel like they explain concepts so beautifully. They lay things out wonderfully. I especially like the one called Your Body in here because they have all these little cartoon characters kind of showing what the stomach does and digestion and all these other little aspects of your body. But of course there are things like weather and planet Earth in here. They're just like shorter looking books, but they have a lot of detail. Another Usborne set that we have, another boxed set that I just wanted to show you, is called Animals, and it is so much fun. There are so many facts about animals in these. They look shorter. Again, these books look kind of short, but they're full of details, and they're very interesting, very engaging for kids, and I highly recommend checking out Usborne boxed sets like this. So yeah, we have the animals one and one just called Science, but that one covers weather and all of the things that I just showed you. This is another one we really like. It's called A Party for Clouds, and it's about thunderstorms, of course, and the kids have really enjoyed this one, especially during the summer when we do get thunderstorms here in Minnesota, and they are just curious about what is happening in the clouds. So this is a really good one. It explains it really well, I think, for young children. This one is called Slow Down. It's about mindful moments in nature, 50 mindful moments in nature, and it's a good sized book with a lot of different pages on different topics, like different animals or little moments in nature. I'll show you in a second. I just wanted to say I wasn't sure what to think of it at first when I saw the title. I didn't know what mindful moments meant, but basically it's these tiny little moments that you don't normally notice in nature, like little tiny events happening in a bug's life or in something else. I'll show you. So for instance, the first page says a bee pollinates a flower. We've got dew collecting on a leaf, a squirrel burying an acorn. We had a bat going hunting at night, a fox eats berries from a bush, and it's not just like one sentence. They definitely talk about, here's the moon, they talk about kind of why things are happening and all the steps and stages, kind of like when you learn about a butterfly's life cycle. It kind of talks about, let's see if I can find another good one. Oh, well, here's one about a sea star eating something else. And it just talks about kind of what happens first and next and next, but it describes it beautifully. There are beautiful illustrations. So I think this is a really good one if you just are starting out with looking for nature or science related books for homeschool, to pick up Slow Down, because then you and your child can cuddle up on the couch and learn about 50 different little moments in nature that are happening. And kids are so good at being observant about these little moments. So I do love this one. We have a couple of these Who Lives Here books, actually several of these Who Lives Here books. I'm just holding a couple of the ones we own. And this one's called Rainforest Animals, this one's called Desert Animals, but these are by Deborah Hodge, and the way she lays out little facts about animals that live in different parts of the world or different habitats. It is so engaging for kids, and the illustrations are beautiful. I'm a sucker for beautiful illustrations, if not like real pictures of animals and nature scenes. You really want to have good illustrations because of course you're trying to learn real life facts. And yeah, I would recommend looking for books by Deborah Hodge. She has really good ones about different habitats and interesting creatures that live there. Here's a fun one that was part of our Sunlight curriculum that was for pre-K. It says, yeah, pre-K 4, 5, ages 4 and 5. Now, I don't fully buy the Sunlight curriculum. I actually use their curriculum as kind of a recommended book list, and then I pick and choose, and then I buy those books secondhand whenever I can. So that's why this one looks well loved, but it's called How to Dig a Hole to the Other Side of the World, and of course that's fictional because you can't do that, but it talks about all the different layers of the earth. I'll try to just show you a picture. So there are illustrations in here, but they're talking in detail about, you know, this rocky skin of the earth is called the crust. It's mostly granite. You will need a drilling machine. And so it's very fantastical, I guess, but I still consider it a wonderful science book because you are learning about every single layer of the earth and a lot of interesting facts about what makes up the earth. This one I wanted to include today, even though I'm pretty sure it's hard to find. Hopefully you can find it, or I can find it and link it for you. It's called Looking at Nature, What is Symmetry in Nature? And we have loved this one because it talks about, of course, symmetry in nature. First of all, what is symmetry? But then they have really interesting bugs and other creatures where you can kind of draw the line, or your child can try to draw, is it, you know, this line of symmetry, this line, or how many lines of symmetry something has in nature. And these are all real pictures inside. I have loved this one, and then Sophie reaches for it just for fun too. We have a few books by Alice and Martin Provenson, and we love the Animal Friends at Maple Hill Farm. That is such a good book, and I know I've recommended it, I think in my fall books. I just threw it into my fall books collection too because I love it so much. But this is by them. It's a husband and wife team. It's called A Book of Seasons. And since it's more of a nonfiction book of theirs, I wanted to include it here. And they just talk about what kids can do in each season of the year. And I think a lot of those time-related topics can be tricky for young kids to understand, like seasons and months and days and years. So this is a really good one for starting out with those concepts. Here is another DK book. So I mentioned DK, or that Dorling Kindersley kind of, I don't know, company or brand earlier, and I love this one so much. This is a newer book to us, at least in the past couple years. It's called The Magic and Mystery of Trees. They have other ones like The Magic and Mystery of, I don't know if it's like bugs or the earth or the ocean, but the trees one stuck out to me, and we have loved it probably the most. I think I've paged through other ones in stores, and I love this trees one. I have learned amazing facts about trees from this book, and I would be like reading it with the kids and then calling facts over to Bjorn if he's elsewhere in the house, because it is just so fascinating, and they do a really good job. I'll show you a couple illustrations. There are just beautiful illustrations in this book, but it is just full, and some kind of real photographs too that are put in here. But there are so many details, so many facts in this book. This one would be great for older elementary, if not middle school too, just as a really great reference. If you're learning about trees, this is a good one to have on hand. This next book is called Wild About Minnesota Birds. I know we bought it used, and it was probably bent up quite a bit. Hopefully we haven't abused it too much further, but we've really enjoyed this book. And it's a youth's guide to the birds of Minnesota, so it's just laid out nicely for kids, but I wouldn't say it's for very, very young children, although we have enjoyed it, because we have all sorts of facts in here and wonderful pictures. You can learn all about their nesting, migration, if they are awake during the day or the night, their life cycle, and extra facts. They even have a map of Minnesota showing, like a lot of bird books do, showing where in Minnesota that bird can be found. And the good news is they have a whole series of other states, or at least regions of America. So definitely look for Wild About whatever your state is birds, or a youth's guide to the birds of whatever your state is. I love this book. It's fascinating. I feel like we have a lot of stuff about birds, but I think kids, especially young children, are interested in birds, and we might as well embrace that and learn some really neat things. I guess I will keep talking about birds momentarily. We'll see if another bird book pops up. This is called The Little Book of Backyard Bird Songs. They have a lot of these, and they even have like ocean creature sounds. So it's not all birds, but I love this so much, and I'll just do my favorite one for you. They have real bird calls. We've got the mourning dove there, and really, really pretty illustrations and facts about birds, but this one is a fun one to have on hand. I do love books that have sounds, especially when it comes to what sounds animals make or birds make. So definitely check out this book. I'll link it below like all of the other books, but there should be a whole series you could find on Amazon or somewhere too. So this one's great. This book is called Flower Study, and it's made by The Good and the Beautiful, which is where we get a good amount of our homeschool curriculum. And this one is full of beautiful pictures. If you have a child who loves, like if you have a little girl who loves flowers, there are beautiful pictures of flowers in this book and lots of facts, like, you know, what state it's found in, like if it's a state flower, and all sorts of things, like even maybe how it smells a little bit. It's called Flower Study because it's a more in-depth study of flowers, and I believe this comes as part of a set. At least we got it as part of a set from The Good and the Beautiful. It came with these flower cards for a little flower game, which was really, really fun, and they have real pictures of flowers on those cards as well. So this is a really beautiful book if you have someone who loves plants or flowers in your family. I feel like this one gets recommended by homeschool moms quite a bit. It's called Nature Anatomy, and it's kind of like that, well, it's not the same as the 50 Mindful Moments in Nature, that slow down book, but it definitely has beautiful illustrations and just fascinating. It's kind of a reference book about all different aspects of nature with a lot of labels and a lot of, yeah, mostly labels. But I really have enjoyed this one. The kids love flipping through it, and it's another good, maybe a more general reference book when it comes to nature and science in your homeschool. This book is The Berenstain Bears, if you've heard of them. The Berenstain Bears, big book of science and nature. It's for the Sunlight pre-K level, or ages 4 and 5. And so I had gotten it a couple years ago for Sophie, and we've enjoyed this one. I don't reach for it all the time, but I did want to include it in here. This one, it rhymes, and it's just very kind of comical. If you've seen Berenstain Bears books, there's just kind of funny adventures that they go on, but this one just has a lot of rhyming and talking about all the different aspects of nature that they're seeing as they walk along or as they explore. So this is a fun one to have, especially if you have younger kids who might appreciate kind of an adventure way to explore nature and the rhyming too. These next 3 books are all by Robert E. Wells, and I love this author because he does a fabulous job of explaining really tricky concepts to young children, but this would be perfect for any elementary grade, and it's really engaging for kids because of the examples he uses. So this one is called Is a Blue Whale the Biggest Thing There Is? And he talks about, I mean, look at this illustration. If you were to put 100 blue whales in a jar and then put 2 of those whale jars on an enormous platform, oh, and here he goes, putting all these jars of 100 blue whales up here, you know, he's just talking about how that itself would look this big on Mount Everest. It just gives kids such an amazing reference point. We've got oranges that are the size of the sun, and he's trying to explain, well, he is explaining the galaxy and going bigger and bigger and bigger. So this book is all about huge, huge, huge things. So this one is great. We also have, in terms of size, we've got What's Smaller Than a Pygmy Shrew. This is about of course, things that are smaller than a pygmy shrew, and it just goes in incredibly small, way down to, let's see, he talks about molecules and bacteria, and here's the bacteria and how bacteria are made up of something called molecules, and he goes smaller and smaller to bacterium, and then down to atoms. So, and further, of course, but I love how he explains, I know that was a really quick flip through, but I love how he explains these concepts in such an engaging way for young kids, and it's really fun for the parent too, and it also just teaches us a lot. The third book that we have by Robert Wells is How Do You Lift a Lion? This one has been actually a favorite of ours because sometimes it's just a little mind-blowing to think about how big the universe is or how tiny atoms and protons and neutrons and everything are. But this one is about levers and fulcrums and how on earth you could possibly lift a lion using your own strength, and how a lever would have to be constructed, or maybe how you could move a panda. And he talks about axles and bearings and how you would probably need wheels, and talks about friction. It's just really good. We've got pulleys in here, and that's how our son Soren got started with being interested in pulleys and building little things and calling it a pulley. It's really cute. But I love these Robert E. Wells books, so definitely look for those. He's got the Blue Whale book, the Pygmy Shrew book, and this one is about lifting lions. So I will link all of those down below too. Usborne has all sorts of books. This one is called Usborne Starting Point Science. That's kind of the mini series. We just have this one. It's from a Sunlight curriculum list, and it's called Why Do Tigers Have Stripes, as you can see. And it's full of all sorts of facts. It's not all about tigers. Basically, this book gets into physical appearance of all sorts of animals and why that's important. So this is a great one to have. It's thin, but again, filled with lots of detail. The next 5 books, or the last 5 books in what I'm sharing with you today, are all by Jerry Pallotta. And Jerry Pallotta has a huge series. I think it's like 25 books. We don't have all of them yet, but he has these alphabet books that are beautifully illustrated, and they have funny facts in them and just really interesting facts. Like sometimes he'll have a certain creature come across the page, and he will comment on it as the author and say, go back to page 6 or something like that. Really fascinating facts, and they're all about different topics. This one's the bird alphabet book. We have the vegetable alphabet book. Here, I'll show you in one of these. We have the flower alphabet book, the desert alphabet book, and the underwater alphabet book, because Sophie's really into ocean creatures. So since it's an alphabet book, he has pretty much 1 letter per page, and it's really fun to learn about all of these different creatures. It's usually the animal that starts with that letter, but sometimes he kind of tweaks it and he makes a different comment about the creature. Like U is for upside down jellyfish, but then he talks more about different kinds of jellyfish, that kind of thing. And he is just such a great author. I love his books, and I feel like I always want to collect a little bit more. And yeah, definitely look for Jerry Pallotta books. That's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was helpful for you to see our science and nature related books for homeschool. I know that these books would be great for pretty much any homeschooling family because they span more than just, kindergarten and under. They are wonderful for different elementary grades, and as you saw, there are a lot of books that could span to ages even older than elementary, and I just think those are wonderful types of books to have in your family's home library. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss out on any upcoming content. I also have an email newsletter that you can sign up for down below in the description box. I will try to link all of the books, and if I run out of space in the description box, I'm going to turn it into a blog post and just put all of the books links on my blog post. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you so you know right where to find them. I also wanted to mention real quickly here that I have an online course about homemaking and motherhood, and it's called the Present Mama Playbook, because the ultimate goal is to be more present with our kids, more present with our family. And that comes from 2 aspects of what I call the present mama equation. And of course I get more into it in my course, but basically we want a household that runs smoothly along behind the scenes, and we also want to have fresh perspectives on motherhood and good mental resiliency and focus and that feeling of purpose in our motherhood journey. And so when we combine those 2 things and all of the strategies that I share in the course, then you become a more present mom with your kids, and it's just so wonderful to feel at peace, but also to feel productive as a mom. So if you're interested in hearing more about the Present Mama Playbook, you can sign up for the waitlist for my course down below in the description box. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you're at. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.
Yesterday